So I was a lawyer, and I mean, it's still sometimes I'm a lawyer, and I was very concerned with what my own carbon footprint was, what I could do to just reduce waste in general. And the more I explored this space, I learned how to compost. I learned how to get, non-toxic cleaning supplies, non-toxic beauty. The part that took me the longest was finding sustainable clothing. And I remember the first time I found by accident like a pair of swim trunks that were made from recycled plastic bottles. And I was like, whoa, you can do that. And so it started this adventure. And in my adventure, I was like, okay, there's a lot of amazing brands that are doing great things in the sustainability space. It just takes forever to find them and, be like, oh, okay, is this going to fit me? Can I return this? So selfishly, I wanted a store that vetted products for me and just said, hey, these are all sustainably made. This is what sustainability means to us. And here you go, shop your heart out. Everything here is good for the planet. And so I came up with the concept, and we've been working on it since August, and we are launching on Earth Day this year, April 22nd. We're really excited to bring you guys access to sustainable brands from around the globe. That's a great question. And that's something, I struggled with too. There's what does sustainability really mean? It's not regulated. It's kind of like what organic food was in the beginning. No one really knew. Does it mean you're like living freely on a farm as a chicken? Is it what you're eating? Like, what does it mean? So we've come up with 3 overarching pillars, and then we have within that some subcategories. So first of all, for us, fair labor practices, because if we don't sustain the people that are creating these beautiful pieces of clothing for us, there is just nowhere to go. They need to be, given fair living wages, no child labor, safe working conditions. So that's our first pillar. Second is ethically sourced. So when you work with textile and garment manufacturers, and you as the brand pull what you want to use to make your clothing, the way that material is sourced needs to not destroy the planet in the way that you're taking from the planet, because the planet itself has given us everything we need, and it can recycle itself. That's what composting is, like biodegradable materials. You throw them back in the earth, they will take care of themselves. It's kind of like self-cleaning, right? Then our third main pillar, and this is the one I think most consumers will focus on, is sustainable materials. And what does that mean to Cadre? So that is recycled materials, upcycled materials, biodegradable, and organic cotton. And so you have to, in order to be on our site, use one of these 4 types of materials. And then if you have additional features, like you use low impact dyes or you use less water, we love that, we commend it, but it's really focused on what fabrics you're using to be sustainable. And then another part of what Cadre's consumer journey involves is at the end of your garment life cycle. So when you're done with your shirts, you can donate them to a textile recycling company, and then the actual material continues to live on. It gets created to either, recycled cotton or recycled wool, whatever the case may be. And you continue to sustain that actual garment into new products, or you can resell with a reseller, and then, a shirt can just continue to be used instead of going into fashion waste. So that's sustainability to Cadre. I know it's a mouthful. Yes. So there's 2 parts to fashion waste. One is, and that's a great question. One is, what are the brands themselves doing? So we are working with brands that use plant-based materials, so they're biodegradable, reducing the waste from that product. There's companies we're working with that use all recyclable materials. So again, you can just reuse the same material, reducing the product from going into landfills. And then there's we're talking to a company that uses 3D printing. So there is the garment itself is created in a way where there is no extra waste. And then most of the brands that we're working with have only 2 seasons that they show for. So they're not creating numerous, fall, summer, spring, pre-spring, like all these different collections. So many items. They're making, getting consumers to think, hey, do I really need this much? And let's be conscious of what we purchase. So there's one side of reduction that happens with the brands. And the reason this is really important is fashion itself is the second largest pollutant on the planet. And so there's about 92 million tons of fashion waste that goes into landfills every year. And part of the problem is obviously we've created this, fast fashion overconsumption culture. So on the brand side, taking those out of their own product lines is one step. On the consumer side, it's, when you make purchases, do you need to buy the same shirt in 5 colors? I don't know. But then there's now ways to, are you buying products that maybe are made from recycled plastic bottles? So they're taking waste out of the environment and reusing it. We went to a fashion show during Fashion Week this year by a wonderful designer who is using ghost fish nets. So fish nets that are left in the ocean and making textiles out of that. And it's beautiful garments. It's an amazing line, but that's another way to reduce, like, purchasing from a brand that actually takes garbage out of the earth and then makes you pretty clothing from it. And then it's, can you recycle what you've already used, which that part is becoming, the circular part is becoming more and more common. It's very new still, but if consumers can access a point where they can send their clothes to a textile recycler, that's a way to reduce waste, or to resell instead of just throwing something out when you're done with it. Let someone else wear it. They can wear it and, take their picture on Instagram, and it's the same shirt, but, the picture isn't the same because we're so concerned these days. So that's one of my favorite questions, because I myself am very new to the fashion space outside of being a consumer, right? I haven't worked in a fashion company prior to creating Cadre. So even for me, when I was on my journey, I thought, okay, I have to be much more conscious of what I wear, right? Not only from from a fashion waste perspective, but from, how do I help the planet? And I thought I was going to be wearing just tan linen dresses. Like, you just dress very plain, very crunchy, like there was no options, right? And then, as much as it's interesting, because you start looking into things and then, like, Instagram starts showing you all these brands and, like, everything starts popping up. And so what was fun for me is debunking that myth and finding these brands that were so on trend. There was actually one of my favorite stories. I bought a sustainably made biker shorts and sports bra, so a workout set. And I think it was either Mate the Label or Girlfriend Collective, both brands that I love. And then I also had this, like, puffy fleece thing, like that teddy fleece. And I went out to work out at a Pilates class. And this girl next to me, like, I noticed she was wearing a very similar outfit. Like, we had a very similar salmon-ish, pinkish color biker shorts and sports bra on, and she also had like a puffy teddy's fleece thing. And in my head, I was just like, oh, this is like proving my concept that you don't have to change your style to be sustainable. Like, there's so much out there that looks exactly like what we want to buy right now. And she commented after class, she's like, hey, we're wearing the same outfit. And I was like, we are. And, like, you don't even realize that mine was made by, I think the fleece was made using recycled plastic bottles, and the, set was made from organic cotton. So it was very fun to actually live the debunking. And then the other day, like a month ago, I bought this sweatsuit, pants and a hoodie. And I thought, I mean, it's very plain, but it's cute. And I have a friend who bought something very similar, actually looks pretty identical, but from a really high-end designer. And he was so excited. And I was like, wait, I have the same thing, which is from a sustainably made brand. So that's my favorite myth to debunk, that it's not what I thought it was going to be. Yeah, I think there's a lot, and we've discussed this before, like the top down change is very effective. And part of what's hard, I think, for consumers is we didn't choose to use a material that was destroying the planet, that just doesn't degrade. Like spandex will never go away. But we're living with the consequences, and now it's coming into play. But the industry, there's many things they can do, like whether it's reducing the amount of scraps they have when they create product. Can they reuse it? Can they make scrunchies out of it? Can they make another garment? Choosing, like the company Reformation chooses dead stock materials, so they can be a lot more mindful in what textiles they're using. And, especially using biodegradable textiles, organic textiles, things that have that will help the planet or have a longer life. That's a change that they can make, reducing their own waste. And then, if they start to make less, show less seasons, make less product, maybe less color variations. Do we need to have a top in 15 different colors? Maybe it's just, 5 colors this season. I think those would really help. And people becoming more and more aware of what's going on in their bodies, it's going to force these companies to rethink it. And you see it already, I think Adidas definitely has some sustainably made shoes. I feel like I saw that Nike has a line that has something like a biodegradable rubber, perhaps. So these bigger brands are exploring, and I'm glad that they are, because that's where the change, the bigger change will come, and give consumers the place to make choices that are helpful to the planet. Yes, and that's a really good question. So smaller brands, because they start from scratch and they're starting with this very mission driven, purpose driven idea, their whole business model is resting on something very different than a big brand that's established, that has, tons of employees, and everything down to every dollar is calculated on their margins and what they're doing. And there's so many people involved, right? I think it's very different and harder to make a change in a bigger brand, because there's so many more pieces at play. And these smaller brands, and Cadre included, we're coming in fresh. We don't have, all these employees sitting there that these numbers are built on, that we're going to feel, like, oh, we have to cut this or we have to do that. Our whole business model is aligned with the mission of helping the planet. So with smaller brands, I feel that they can also experiment more, because again, they don't have as many dependencies. So they can try apple leather and say, like, oh, this works, this doesn't work, or people are okay with this, they're really responding to this and responding to that. And the smaller they are, I think the more testing they're doing right now, because they don't have a large audience. Well, hopefully they will soon. And so it gives them the space to be like, okay, let's try different things and see what people really like. Oh, sure. There's a ton of things. So one of my favorite first things I did was, there's two things, and this is unrelated to fashion. I started to pay attention when I buy skincare or groceries. If there is, let's say there's a coffee, I want to buy coffee. I can either buy it in a glass jar, or a plastic jar. And I will now always actively choose the brand that's using glass. And again, nothing is 100% perfect. Those glass jars still have plastic lids, but there's less than an entire jar of plastic. I also will ask, when I go get coffee, I will ask them not to give me a plastic lid so that there's less plastic going into the planet. Now, if I was super sustainable, I would be using a reusable cup. But the one thing I'd like to say to everyone is every small step you take matters. So do what you can, do what you remember. If you remember it sometimes and don't others, like, it's okay. Don't kill yourself. You're at least trying. And even with clothes, like, it's not, I'm going to be sustainable, so I'm going to throw out my entire wardrobe and start again. Like, that's not helping, right? That's just adding waste. So you still use what you have and then either resell it or recycle it. And when you go to purchase new items, try to be more conscious and you go to brands that are more sustainable in their practices, or shop at Cadre.